Kicking It with Sensei, and today we're joined by Wmpyr. It's a great pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much.
Uh, I think we'll just go into discussion basically about cross training and the martial arts. And
Yes,
have you done much cross training yourself? And
for sure. When I got into martial arts, that was the attraction to me, was
yeah,
all the different styles out there. And I think also probably for you too, from what I've seen in
yeah,
your video, you seem big into that.
yeah, definitely. And I've noticed you've done a lot of Filipino martial arts and things like that. Now, what
Yeah.
would be your main base in the martial arts, and what would be your main kind of martial art that you would train? Like, uh,
Yeah, definitely. It's become Filipino martial arts for sure. The Filipino combat stuff has completely taken over in in the way that I approach things now. But I still combine, and it's a hybrid of what
yeah,
I do. You know.
yeah. Yeah, it's very much the same as myself. I started in boxing, and then kind of went into the kickboxing because I wanted to
Yeah.
add kicks, and found Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I kind of progressed through that, and was doing kickboxing and that right
Yeah.
through my teens, and then discovered judo, and just it's snowballed from there. I've just been training anything and everything that I can get training in,
Okay.
and I've got the point
Sorry.
now where I'm looking at the historical martial arts, trying to go back even further and
Mm,
find what's not known and what's kind of lost in time a bit, and trying
mm-hmm.
to sort of reignite that.
Nice. I have a question for you, which
Yeah,
I think it would be an interesting point of discussion. Is a lot of people today are cross training. Back then, it was more like just do one style and just stick
yeah,
with that, right? That was the
yeah,
attitude. But now a
yeah,
lot of people are cross training, which is great. But the thing about cross training, though, is that if you do too many styles, right,
yeah.
it becomes like quantity and the quality kind of drops. So, how do you battle against that?
My main thing, I would base a lot around sparring. So
Spar. Okay.
sparring, like, and if I found a weakness in what I'm doing, if someone was able to kind of get the better of me because my kicks weren't great, or I would look at a specific art that deals with that, and I would kind of train more on that, and would kind of improve on the weaknesses in my game. And the more they grow, the more you discover other weaknesses, and everything else is catching up. So it's always trying to find your biggest weakness,
Yeah.
and then just improve on that. And then once that's improved, see where's weak next, where's the next biggest weakness, and
Yeah.
just keep improving on it. And you'll always find more. And I
Right.
find too, when you do train in another martial art and you go and to another place and train, you start to learn a lot more that's improving the things that you are good at
Yeah.
as well as your weaknesses. So it's there's a lot to learn, and it's just knowing what is the weakness in your game and improve on that and keep growing. But
Mm-hmm. That that's a very smart way to go because a lot of people I think want to focus on their strengths, right?
yeah, oh, big time now. It's I've seen so many people that's they're good at kickboxing
Mm.
and they just avoid grappling at all costs, because as long as it keeps massaging their ego that they're a great martial artist because they're great at kickboxing, but
Right.
they don't want to look at groundwork because they know they have to start learning and getting out of their comfort zone again.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. For you, did you start off in stand-up striking or grappling first?
boxing first. So I started in boxing and then went into kickboxing. So it wasn't until I was at school and discovered a Japanese jiu-jitsu club and thought, because everybody was kind of starting at school age, kind of going into it, and I had a
Yeah.
few years competition in kickboxing, maybe I thought I'd go on here and it'll be a nice easy breeze through it. And I think within the first week I realized I was out of my depth and I was just getting thrown about everywhere. And
Yeah.
that's kind of given me the lesson that this is my weakness, and I worked on that. And I've kind of always kept that ethos then of kind of look for the weakness and improve. So
Yeah, no, that's really admirable because like for me, I started off in more like a stand-up type system in Filipino martial arts, and it was a Kuksul One, which was like a Korean jiu-jitsu kind of thing, but it's still stand-up.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw the UFC 1, I was like, man, I don't know what to do on the ground. I need to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was tough. It was probably the hardest style I've ever practiced because it was so different.
Yeah.
And what about you? What was the hardest style you've ever?
I think judo.
Judo. Okay.
Judo was very difficult now. I think because of the Japanese jiu-jitsu. No, we did do a lot of striking in it and a lot of throws and things, but I think because it was so specific on throwing, I thought I had more knowledge than I had going into judo. And once those guys get a hand on you, it's just game over. But you even seen it in UFC now. It was with Ronda Rousey.
Right.
Like, everybody was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Ronda came in with the judo, and it changed the game instantly. Yeah. And again with Anderson Silva now coming in with Wing Chun, it was something that people weren't ready for. I suppose the UFC started that, no one was ready for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and kind of it just reigned supreme from the start. And then as more people kind of brought their arts into it, they had a period where no one seen what was coming, and they kind of had a running streak. And when people got smart at it started to go downhill for them. But
if you do something that everybody else is doing, like now MMA has become, more sanctioned sport. So everybody knows how you're supposed to train for it, how you're supposed to fight for it. But if you do that, you're just going to be average.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody does. So if you bring in something special, something, like you're saying, when Ronda Rousey came in with the judo, or Anderson Silva bringing in Wing Chun, crazy, stuff that, or Ryoto Machida with the karate, the Mai spacing and stuff like that. I mean, you bring in something that the other people aren't doing, then it gives you that extra edge. So I think it's important to not, just go, oh, that style, we don't see it in here, so we're not even gonna look at it, right?
Yeah, that's it. No, and there's so many styles out there that no one's heard of. It's like I've had a lot on my channel interviews with Hawaiian martial artists and Viking martial arts. That was a very unusual one now, but again, it's very like wrestling. So it could be seen in the future in UFC at some point.
Okay.
But it's I think it's a dirtier version of wrestling now. They do fish hooking and things like that. So I think they need to clean up things before it was introduced. But I can see it coming in the future.
Nice. Yeah. So I think you're like me, and when you see like all these like very unique styles and stuff, it's exciting, right?
It is.
So when you see something like that, do you like to, like when I was younger, I wanted to cherry pick. I wanted to get the best from this style, the best from this, and put it together and make my own Frankenstein.
Yeah, that was the best term I heard when I was chatting you an email and you said Frankenstein martial arts.
Yeah.
I thought that's an excellent term. It does sum it up. Yeah, definitely. I still do.
Oh, you still do?
Okay.
Yeah.
I've had a habit in the last maybe 5 to 10 years of, I would just, in the evening time, I would just think, I want to train tonight. And I'd literally just look up what clubs are open near. And I would just go and train. It could be my first night there, and I'll just go and train with those guys and see how it goes. And sometimes I would come back repetitively. Sometimes I would only do one night. But it's interesting to see what other people are doing. And even within single systems now, you might have maybe 10 different dojos training the same, like Goju, but each one's training it differently. Yes. It's interesting to get the different points of views from different instructors. It's fascinating, but
yeah, that it sounds like you're doing kind of like the TV show like Fight Quest, where they go visit the school and you go experience that. Yeah, I did that in my college years. I would just go to here's a Olympic Taekwondo school and just try it. Here's a in school. Just try it. I went to a capoeira school, you know, and just experience what they had to offer, and it's fun, and you kind of you go in there knowing you're not going to be good at it because it's your first day.
Yeah. Well, I love putting myself out of my comfort zone. I think you need to be out of your comfort zone to actually grow. So going into these places and getting your ass kicked for a few hours, it definitely puts you out of your comfort zone. So.
You know, you think also because like in a street situation, if the opponent's good, they're going to take you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So if you're used to that, then, I mean, it's okay. But if you're not used to that and you're always used to having your way, then you're going to be in trouble, right? Has this ever happened to you? This happened to me where I went to a school and like you know, just trying out this new school, and they immediately look at me as a threat, and they go, oh, this guy has a background. Maybe he's like a spy. I don't know what, but they treat me that way. Has that happened to you?
It has now. I've went to a local club and went in, and the instructor knew me. No one else did.
Okay.
But that night when we were training, he put all his best guys with me, and it was just beat him up. And it was, but luckily I was kind of able to kind of hold my own and put on a good sparring match. But I could see if it had been maybe 3-4 years earlier, I probably would have come out in very bad shape. But
yikes! Yeah. Oh man, I went to a BJJ school in Florida, and the teacher was like, "Okay, everyone, we're gonna start running and all this calisthenics," and everyone in class is looking at like, "Why are we doing? We never do this." And I knew it was to wear me out. Yeah. And then when sparring time comes, I'll be tired. So they thought I was some professional shoot fighter from Japan. No, I'm not. Yeah, that when you go to different places that you've never been, those are some of the, I don't know, would you call it kind of the dangers?
It can be. Now, I have actually been where I went to another club as well, and I always wear a white belt going on to any other when I'm visiting. But I was actually given a black belt going in. Oh, and the instructor actually asked me, could I wear it so that the students would know that I'm not actually a beginner. But it was the first time I came across that now. But it's interesting to see how different systems will actually make you wear a white belt or make you wear a black belt and things like that. But it's a very interesting thing visiting other dojos. But
yes. How is your take on that with the whole belt system and the teachers and all that, the ranks, you know, grandmaster, master, and what do you think about?
I think it's important within the school, but I think outside of it, it doesn't really matter. But I think it's as an instructor myself now, it's great to actually be able to look around and see clearly what level different students are at, without actually having to speak. And no, you can just look and see, right, these people are at this level and these are at this level. So I think it's good for actually setting out classes and things like that. But I think once you walk out of the dojo, I think it doesn't really make much difference. I've seen white belts getting attacked in the street and winning. I've seen black belts getting attacked and losing. It's just, so I think outside on the streets, and I hate saying that, on the streets, it sounds like Master Wong, but but I don't think the belt has much meaning really out there. It's
I want to see martial arts in some ways unified to where the belts, because some people see it as a joke, right? Yeah. So I kind of want to see it kind of as like it's a school, like a university. So it's all based on time, rather than, oh, I'm from this lineage and whatever. It's more like, you know, if you look at normal academics, right? After you graduate high school, then you go to college, you get your bachelor's degree. That takes 4 years, right, after high school. And then maybe another 2 years to get your master's degree. and then another 2-3 years to get your doctors, right?
Yeah.
So I think the timeline should be like that, just like college, and that's all it is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. And I know with our own federation now, the titles, you would hear Sensei, Grandmaster, things like that. Now
Right.
they're totally separated from rank kind of things, so the belts would have no influence on it. There's a lot of black belts that wouldn't be considered Sensei, and they kind of put that down to teaching experience.
Oh,
So
okay.
you would actually have to teach for a period, and you would
I
be tested on that over time. And if they feel that you could run your own classes and things like that, they would promote you to a sensei kind of thing.
right.
But it's more of a teaching thing rather than you're a black belt now. You can
Yeah,
call
you're
yourself
right because
sensei. But
yeah, no, you're right. Right now, it's kind of like if you're a black belt, then it's like you can fight and you can teach. Like, no, those are two different. Some people can fight well, can't teach worth a lick, and
yeah,
there's other people that can teach very well, but then they're obviously not fighters.
yeah, definitely. But I think it is important, even through martial arts. I think if people have that intention of teaching it, they should be putting some work into actually learning to teach. I think that's very important. As you say, some black belts just can't teach. It's a different skill set
Right.
than fighting. But
So something that bothers me, I don't know if you've noticed this on YouTube too, but something that bothers me is I see a lot of people, maybe because their skill is very good, that people automatically assume that this guy is an awesome teacher. Has a great program, and just because his skill is good, to me, that doesn't mean he can teach, and it also means he actually doesn't mean he can fight either. The
yeah,
ability to demonstrate and look good on camera is a totally different skill.
yeah. So I've noticed that this year. Now during the pandemic when it first started last March, we
Yeah.
had to close all our clubs. We have guys that are excellent teachers, excellent fighters, and then put them in front of a camera. Everything stopped. It's a totally different skill set. They just could not do it in front of a camera. And then you got guys that are great at marketing, and they
Right.
can stand in front of a camera and sell anything, and it's unbelievable. But
Yeah.
I keep thinking the best martial arts teachers out there are nowhere near YouTube. It's
Unfortunately, right? Yeah.
it's
I mean, because what YouTube is what is it? In a way, it's a popularity contest, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that has nothing to do with teaching.
definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've seen some bad YouTube videos now. It's unbelievable, especially in self-defense. Some of the things that's
Oh,
been taught, it's going to get someone killed. It's
now I guess back to we're headed in the cross training
yeah,
department. But in one thing that I noticed, right, that I actually experienced in college was I had a challenge match with a guy who came from a traditional karate background, and I
yeah,
fought this guy, and I was big into cross training, and he only did the traditional karate. So I
yeah,
looked at him and I was like, this is going to be a breeze. Like, he's not at my level. I'm
yeah,
going to destroy this guy. I'm used to fighting guys from other styles. This guy, he does a little bit of point fighting, mostly
yeah,
forms. And he's a black belt in karate. So I fought this guy to a draw. It was a draw. I was surprised. I thought I was going to destroy this guy. And he's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, whatever, but it turned into a draw, and that's where I had to admit that there are different ways to climb the mountain.
yeah,
And I like cross training. This guy doesn't do it, but I had to admit that the result was we were the same. I couldn't say cross training is better. What do you think about that?
I think each person has to look at themselves. That works different for each individual, really. I suppose it's the same. Someone training traditional sometimes be better at sparring, sometimes better at kata, things like that. But I think at the end of the day, they all sort of level out at some level as being the best that they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us will sort of benefit more from cross training, and some of us just concentrating on the one path will work out better for them. So I think you just have to take it on an individual basis and see
Right.
what works best for yourself.
Yes.
But
And that was one of the lessons for me where his quality was very high.
Mhm.
And I had kind of spread myself. Yes, I could do ground, I could do throws, I could do weapons, I could do this, but it was a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
So I felt like his quality in that one area was really, really high. And that's something that had always concerned me, was to try to make sure to make my quality. I want to keep studying other styles, but to
yeah,
keep that quality level as high as I could.
definitely. It's the system I'm training now. It's actually a hybrid system as well.
Mm,
It was sort of formed. It was actually a karate guy and a judoka got together way back, must have been the 60s or 70s,
okay.
and kind of trained together, and then they created this style based on both. But it's kind of progressed over the years. They've promoted cross training from day one.
Oh,
So
okay.
anybody that wants to go out, students, instructors, and train in something else,
Yeah.
they promote it and come back. And if you find something that's an improvement, let us know, or and kind of progress the system itself
Nice.
over the last maybe 40 years. But I know now that there's a lot of students that are cross training and they're all coming in. So it's crazy how we come in and there's sparring matches going on, and you're seeing guys that are training in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu
Yeah.
and they're fighting a guy that's training judo, but they're all training in the one system as well. So it's an interesting view on it, and I'm very interested to see where it's going to go in the next 10 years, kind of
Nice.
thing, because there is so much coming on it now.
Yeah.
But
What's been one of the interesting styles that you've encountered in recent years that you've been like, wow, this is different, this is refreshing, fascinating stuff?
I'm very interested in Muay Thai at the minute. It's very interested in it now, but everywhere been closed. I haven't really got a chance. I only had two classes, but then
Yeah.
everything closed down. But I'm really interested in getting back to it and having a good go at it. And I think
Yeah.
it's because it's so similar to kickboxing from where it started. So it's kind of going back to the beginning kind of thing, really. But it's it's
Now,
very. I've always been
yeah.
more of a stand-up kind of guy. I like
Yeah.
stand-up fighting. It's
in in America, this is where I spent most of my life, is here in the U.S. The kickboxing, we had military people go to Asia, come back, and
yeah,
did like taekwondo, did like karate, and they came from point sparring, and they wanted something more full contact, and
yeah,
that's where American kickboxing came from.
yeah.
So you being from over there in the Ireland, UK, that
Yeah.
area, what is the kickboxing like over there? Because I'm sure the history is totally different from the US.
It's quite similar, It's with a lot of guys kind of. I think a lot of came over from Thailand actually at one stage, and
Whoa.
so a lot of it's. I know a lot of the guys that I would have trained with years ago now. They've all went to Thailand and trained and came back, and they're kind of starting up kickboxing clubs now. But it's more like Muay Thai now than it is kickboxing that I would have done when I was younger. But
Right.
it's. I think a lot of the systems here now are taking a lot of influence from UFC. So
Yeah.
they're all kind of sort of turning into hybrid Muay Thai Brazilian Jiu Jitsu clubs rather than them putting the name karate on it. And
Yes.
so, but I know of two clubs here that are supposedly karate, but they don't do any kata, and most of their stuff is Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Because the
Right.
coaches are away training these in private and then coming back and teaching what they're learning.
Mm,
But
mm.
they're sort of certified to teach karate. So they use that as the title to kind of open the school, but
I see.
it's but I think mixed martial arts is taking a big hype over here now at the minute, especially with Conor McGregor.
Oh,
he's caused a massive influence in Ireland. But
that's right. That's, but you know what? The way he fights, though, the way Connor fights is not like pure Muay Thai, or I mean, he has a very, to me, it looks like a almost like a traditional stance.
yeah,
It looks like it to me. It comes from a more traditional karate type stance where he's moving back and forward, and
yeah,
it's not the Thai. So
that's it. I think he had a lot of. The start was in Shotokan, I think. I think he done a lot of Shotokan karate, which would probably explain the stance. But
the white stance, yeah.
he's he does a lot of movement training as well with the guy Ido Porto. So I
Hmm.
think that has a massive influence on his movement.
When he was training for the Mayweather fight on the bag, when he was just working on his punching, it looked to me very similar to like Sistema type movement, and I think
Yeah,
that's what you're talking about, where that guy is an expert in body mechanics.
body mechanics. Yeah,
Yeah, and if he didn't have that, I don't think he would have lasted as long as he did against Mayweather.
well, definitely not. But then the Irish have always been great boxers. With like
Mm-hmm.
even the females at the minute, we would have Katie Taylor. So so it's that's a very interesting sport. It's
Have,
always Ireland's always been very influenced by boxing, and
right.
it's
Have you studied or looked into some of the bare knuckle boxing from your culture?
not much now. But I know my grandmother would have been a traveller who settled, and it would have been very big in the Irish travelling community now. It's it's definitely in my history, but I've never really looked into it. But it's something I definitely want to. And but
What about the stick, the shillelagh? Am I pronouncing it correctly?
yeah, I've done a little bit of that now, but
Okay,
I've actually recently bought one, and I've been training with that at home during COVID. But
nice.
it's it's unusual. Like I'm used to Japanese weapons, so
Okay, yeah,
it's unusual having one with all these bumps and lumps on it and a
right.
big knuckle on the end, and
Yeah,
it looks very effective. But
for sure, for sure. Yeah, for me coming from the yeah, like you said, coming from the Japanese background and then doing Filipino weaponry. I
yeah,
mean, it felt so different, but I pretty much fell in love with the Filipino weaponry stuff. I mean, it's the sticks and the knives, the blades. It's just. Are you interested in blade work?
I haven't done much blade work now. I've recently done Sinawali just with the sticks.
Yes.
I've learned that over YouTube with Cali Center, Paul Ingram.
Yes.
So I've been doing that, and during our sort of everything been knocked down, we've been doing a lot of Zoom classes, and I was asked to teach weapons over Zoom to the kids because it's
Okay.
something they could do solo.
Yeah.
And with all our weapons usually being Japanese, our head coach was shocked when I came out with the two sticks and started to teach Sinawali. He was like, "We've never done that." But
That's great.
I like the quick movements of it and being able to. I'd say it'd be very good for trapping with empty hands and things like that as well.
Hmm.
So,
One of the things that I really liked about it was that the Filipino culture and the Filipino combat it's a merging of the East and West.
yeah,
So their stick fighting has a lot of influence from Asian arts, but it also has influence from European. So that makes it to me, because the stick it exists in Japanese styles too. The hanbo, it's
yeah,
called a half stick. So in some ninjutsu styles and stuff, they practice that. But the fact that it has some fencing, European fencing influences and stuff there too makes it
yeah,
to me very unique, and I like the mixture there of East and West.
yeah, definitely. I like with the Filipino martial arts too the way you can do things with the double sticks, but it works with the blades as well, doing the same drills, and it's great for building up speed with the weapons.
Right.
So.
My understanding is like, you know, in the U.S. Marine Corps, back in the day when they were teaching people how to do a bayonet fighting, they gave them the pugil sticks. So it's a stick with the two soft things on either end, and they would spar that way. And the way they taught them was, they said, this is boxing. You're gonna take a boxing stance, and if you hit with this part of the stick, then that's your jab, and if you hit with this is your cross. So they taught it based off of boxing, and they said, why did you do that? Why didn't you teach bayonet fighting? And they said, for the soldiers to learn two different styles, and they got to go to war soon, it's too much. So we just teach them just boxing and show that you could use that for everything. So that, I think it's a similar approach with Filipino combat, because it does come from the battlefield.
Yeah, I think a lot of martial arts you look at now, they're so closely linked. When you actually look at the similarities amongst them, there's very little difference between martial arts from one place to another. And you notice that again, cross training, like when you go around, like a front kick's a front kick and a hook's a hook. So it's just really the drills they do and the different sort of the concepts and the principles behind their specific systems is only difference. The actual techniques are very similar along a lot of them now. So I suppose if you learn one, you can kind of very quickly move on and learn another in half the time. So
the basics, and I feel like the a lot of the basics and the body mechanics, that's gonna be similar, because you really can't change that, because we're all human.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be pretty similar. And then if you start noticing other differences, I feel like it's kind of like for what level individual is this designed for? So maybe if they teach something that's more rudimentary, it's like for the average person could use it on the street. Yeah. But then if they teach something that's like more like Tai Chi, then it's like more for someone that already knows how to fight, has already been doing martial arts for 30, 40 years. So now it's at an older age, how can he bring some of that into his self-defense or whatever? You know, so it's for different times in your life.
Yeah.
And different levels.
I've actually seen something fascinating about Tai Chi. There's a guy who was competing in kickboxing and was usually gassing out in the second or third round. And if he hadn't won in the first two rounds, he was going to lose every time. But he started practicing Tai Chi.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, he'd started winning a lot of fights in the fourth and fifth round. But it turned out, because of the breathing exercises in Tai Chi, he was able to control his breath a lot better.
Oh, wow.
So it actually improved his cardio. But I don't know whether that was his intention from the start, or if it was just something he kind of came across by training in it. But it got me thinking too, there's a lot of things that people do in gyms that aren't directly associated with fighting.
Yeah.
But they improve it a hell of a lot. Like it's
absolutely. So I think when I was towards the end of my senior year in college, all I was thinking about was being practical and effective. And that's when I kind of started noticing that I had a closed mind, and that actually because of that, so like what you're saying with Tai Chi, I would look at Tai Chi and go, no way, I'm not going to train in that because you can't fight. So then I'm losing out, like you said, where they could have taught me how to, breathe better, or, move my body mechanics or my balance, or, it could have helped me in some more subtle way, but I lost out on it because I said, no, that's not for fighting, And so my obsession with practicality and effectiveness actually closed me up and messed me up. It made my progression slower during that time.
Excellent. It's thinking there too. The guy that done the Tai Chi for breathing, the thing I thought was funniest about it was when he started winning fights a lot more because he was controlling his breathing.
Yes.
Tai Chi class he was going to, he was the only young guy in it. It was all older.
Okay.
But I think it's about 2 weeks after he won his fight in the fifth round, his whole kickboxing club was in the Tai Chi class.
That's funny.
So they went from having one guy under 30 to having
Right.
40 of them overnight.
Yeah, I went to a Tai Chi seminar one time, and the instructor kept looking at me like, "What are you doing here? Everybody's old, and you know, everybody's there for health, and I was a young guy, like, yeah, that is 100%. You know, can you benefit from the style? I think that's the question. Not does the style work or the style doesn't work. The question is, can you find a way to benefit from it? That's the question.
Yeah, definitely.
Regardless of style, you know.
I think an important thing is this sort of I stopped looking at styles really and just look at, as I said earlier, my weakness. And I wouldn't look at the style, I would look at what is it good at. Is that more groundwork? Is it more kicking, punching? Or is it better chokes? And I would just go, right, those guys are good at chokes. I'll go and learn from them.
Yes.
And I would actually work on that. And most of the time, I wouldn't even consider the system kind of thing. It's more
nice.
What that guy is good at, and going basically finding who's the best guy to learn what I'm weak at from, and just go and train with them.
Yeah. You went for something very specific to get out of it. Yeah. You know, you mentioned you started doing Sinawali, which is it means arm weaving, right?
Yeah.
The stakes. And I remember, so during that time when I was very close-minded, I said to myself, I need to change. This is not right. My mind's closed. So I went to a style that I thought was the most useless style, which I apologize, but at the time I thought it was capoeira, which I was like, they just dance and they're acrobatics, and these guys, that is the most useless style. So I said, that's very disrespectful, and that can't be true. So you go there to that class and you go have fun. And if you can't do that, there's something wrong with you. So I forced myself to a capoeira school. And at the capoeira school, I remember one teacher said to me, he said, can you do the jinga? And you know, they have a movement where they do the jinga. And I was doing it, and he was like, no, you have to always protect your face, always cover. So then I came back and I applied it to Sinawali. So you learned Sinawali probably like this, right?
Yeah.
So I changed it to here. And I do the Sinawali like this. And then I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Capoeira is awesome.
Yeah. I think there's something in every art really that's gonna improve on yourself, kind of thing. It's just finding what it is in each art really. But
exactly. That's up to you though, you know. If your mind's closed, you're not gonna find it. If you already said this style is dumb, then you're not gonna find it. You've already killed that chance.
Definitely. One of the best situations I actually came across was there was a guy training Aikido for maybe 10 years, and then he joined our judo club because he heard Aikido was no good and it was rubbish, and he was doing judo for about 3 years, and he got attacked one night outside a bar.
Yeah.
And the guy had grabbed him by the throat, and the first thing he done was an Aikido throw. He said it just naturally happened, but it saved him.
Yeah.
They turned around and he said he felt then that judo was useless, because even after 3 years of training solid judo, he said he went back to a really basic Aikido throw. But he said it just showed that when he really needed it, Aikido was the thing that worked for him. So
good for him. Yeah. I mean, dude, it's just a tool, right? It's just a tool. So you just use whatever, you know, and just because he didn't use judo at the time doesn't mean judo doesn't work either. Because like you said, judo can be very, very effective too, at the right time, at the right place, you know, and that probably goes for any style. But one thing my dad said to me was, he said, when I was going to open my own school, which I did at one point, And I said, Dad, I don't know how to run a school. I don't know the business aspect. And he said, well, go do an intern. Go learn under somebody. And I said, who? And he says, it doesn't matter. Find somebody. And I said, what if the guy is bad? What if the guy's no good? And he said, well, if he's no good, then you learn how not to do things. So either way you learn, whether the guy's good or bad, you still, if you're willing to learn, you're going to learn. Yeah. And I think that was the important lesson. So even a style, people are always looking for the best styles. Well, even if it's a bad style, you can learn from it.
Well, definitely. I think I've trained with a lot of bad instructors. It does go back to a lot of guys can be great fighters.
Yeah.
But not great teachers. And I've trained with guys that have been world champions, but just can't pass that information on. It's kind of like when you're beginning in it, they're teaching you at a black belt level because that's what they've been training for so long.
Right.
That they don't know how to break the basics down and kind of teach it from. So it's kind of hard to learn from someone like that, but you're learning how not to teach, I suppose. But
yes. I went to a fight school one time and I was training there. I became their team member and everything. And honestly, they were all just a bunch of thugs. So, yeah, I mean, this was not a great learning environment. It was a great environment to become tough because they try to beat you up every night. Every night was like a fight. But learning-wise, it's not good at all. But getting tough and sparring, full contact, this was great.
Excellent.
But yeah, they were all thugs. So, you got to be careful with stuff like that because you've probably seen it. Some people, they think the way to get better is by beating people up. So they use you as like a training, like a punching bag.
Yeah.
And they practice on you, right?
Yeah.
You've seen that. You've experienced that.
I've experienced that. I've came across that. I got a lot. The system we teach now, they wouldn't be very competitive. Especially with kids coming up. Yeah. But because of that, a lot of people would see me and think easy targets because they don't compete. That mustn't be very good. And you would get people challenge you to spar, and they're just there to try and embarrass you and kind of beat you. But none of them have actually realised that I've actually spent 10, 15 years competing before I've moved. And so I have came across a lot of thugs that just come in, and it's a lot of tap out guys, I call them, because they usually come in massive UFC fans with a tap out hoodie on, and I've trained for 6 weeks in a local MMA club, and you see them everywhere, but they have all the MMA merchandise, but have actually very little training and
posers,
and they watch a lot of YouTube, and they're going to come around and out all these bad instructors and
right.
But I've came across quite a few of them.
But those are the guys. There's a higher percentage. That's what you're gonna encounter on the street, right?
Yeah.
So if you do get into an altercation, it's not the guys that are trying to take your wallet or something like that, but the guys that if you do get into a physical argument and it turns into a fight, it's probably with those guys, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's an ego thing, really. I think I suppose it's a lot of, especially guys in their early 20s, now they've massive egos, and it's. I think the longer you're in martial arts, the more humble you get. You come across experiences like that, and you meet the thugs, and you meet the guys that are years training and that can basically tap you out or knock you out very quickly if they wish. And the more you meet those guys, the more humble you become. So I think over time in martial arts, you definitely lose the ego.
If you do it correctly, you're supposed to, right? You're supposed to become more humble, not more arrogant. Yeah. You never know who you're going to meet on the street. You never know. You can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And for me, a lot of times, not a lot of, every time I'm out there, I'm armed. 100%. I'm armed with all kinds of stuff. So, and if a guy in a tap out shirt challenges me, I'm not going to take out my weapon for this guy. It's, even if he's a better fighter than me, I'll just take a beating. My weapon's not coming out because of that. I'll just go to the hospital. That's fine.
So sometimes it's a better option just to take it now.
I'm not going to jail murdering some guy just for that. No way. But being armed like that gives me that level of comfort. It's like you've been punched at and choked and armbarred, and then some guy says something about your mom. It's nothing.
I always joke with my wife saying, like, what could they do in the street? I choose to go and get punched in the face as a pastime. I said, there's not much they can do out there, really. Like, it's when your pastime is going to get beat up and fight people.
Yeah.
There's not much fear when you're outside, but
right. You mentioned about where is your studio going, and I'm thinking right now, like you said, MMA is just. I mean, I just came last night from a UFC party, so MMA is huge. Yeah. But I feel like in the future, kind of like what Bruce Lee was going for, which I don't know how true this is, but my understanding was he was interested in unarmed versus armed.
Yeah.
That's what he was going for, which that means you better already know weapons, and this is a level above that. This is your opponent has a weapon and you don't have a weapon, and how do you take that guy out? So that, I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. I've actually done an interesting drill with guys doing that. We have a lot of guys that would cross-train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
And we had them in one night rolling in the dojo.
Yes.
And I stopped everything, and I gave one of them a knife from each pair. It was a rubber training knife, but give them one each.
Yeah.
And then I said, keep rolling now and try not to get stabbed. But it put a whole new level of thought on it, and all of a sudden, all these concepts they learned in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they had to reverse them because they wanted space rather than closing the space and things like that. But it was interesting to see how it played out. But I think it's something I'm definitely going to do a lot more of, just to see how it works. And
yes. I did something similar back when I had a school. My students, these guys were seasoned grapplers, so they were really good on the ground already, and they were grappling. And just in the middle of it, I threw a knife, the cold steel rubber training knife. I just threw it in there and said, "Hey, it's all good, man. Go for it." So now they're running for it. It changes the dynamic. We also, one person hides it somewhere on his body. You don't know if it's in socks or if it's in the back here, or so one person hides the knife and then they grapple, and that person can take out the knife whenever he wants. Yeah. And the other guy, as they're grappling, is searching because he knows there's a knife somewhere. So he's as they're grappling, he's feeling for it and trying to get it out before the other guy gets it. So I mean, it was great practice.
Yeah, we do a very interesting drill too. It kind of started as a game, really. Yeah. We'd have everybody training. We'd stand around the edge of the mats, and one person goes in the middle. Now, some of the guys outside might have weapons tucked down the back and things like that.
Yeah.
But the instructor would walk around and basically whoever's in the middle close their eyes and we'd just number everybody, and they come in order, one after the other.
Oh my goodness.
So as the first guy goes in, he has to attack, and the guy in the middle would have to take him down, finish him. But as soon as he's finished, the next guy's coming, and you've no idea which direction they're circled around.
Wow.
So you have to be watched. But it's very interesting to see how it plays out sometimes. And then the guy could have a weapon, could have a knife, a stick, and sometimes he's coming with nunchucks or sais and things. So it's fun. Sometimes we just add things in just to see how it plays out. And we had a guy come on with a chair one night, and
Nice, nice.
but
Yeah,
it's really to get the head thinking and think quick kind of thing. But it started as a game, and it's turned into like a regular drill now kind of thing. We even include it in testings. So when we're testing for a belt or that would be a major feature of it now to really
that-
showcase
yeah.
their technique. So, but I think things like that need to be introduced into a lot of different systems now. Just it adds a self-defense aspect. But
Hmm. No, that's great, man. That kind of reminds me of the in Kyokushin, they do the 100-man sparring
yeah,
or what. It's kind of, but like you're saying, it comes from wherever. So
yeah,
yeah, no, very interesting stuff.
I've nearly done that. I think when I was going for my black belt, I had 80 people. So it went on for quite a while, but
80.
80. But it was. But then again, you're not going for a 2 minute round. Once they come in, you
Yeah,
get them out very quick. So most of them's 10 seconds at most. But
right.
but
Still,
it's still 80 is quite a lot. Like, and you get tired, and they're coming on fresh every time, and it's
yeah.
uh,
No, for sure, for sure. No, that's great. One of the things with the Sinawali, did you learn to do it with a partner? So you do it together. It's not just one person.
I have, yeah. Actually, I learned it solo to start with.
Oh, okay.
Then I taught my daughter.
Okay.
She's 16, so the two of us have been training it together at home. But
Do you tap sticks then
yeah,
with your?
tap sticks, yeah.
Okay. So
So
well, one of the things when you do that, there's a lot of things that you could do to expand that drill. But so as you're doing it together, I mean, the most basic is you start circling,
yeah,
right? But then like when my students get more comfortable with it, now I put water jugs that are empty. You could fill it with water, and you could just put it all over the floor. So as you're doing this and you can't look down, you have to be doing that and moving around,
yeah,
avoiding the, so when the sticks are coming at you, fast, and you got to be, minding where you walk. So
yeah,
that gives kind of more of a street feel, adrenaline. And
yeah.
so I would
That's
do
cool.
everything I can to mess people up. So as they're doing it, I would push them from the back to mess them up, you know, and they would have to recover. It's not, oh, I messed up, can we start over again? No, you go from there, you have to recover. Yeah. So there's a lot of things.
I must try that. It sounds fun.
Yeah, it is. Dude, because you have a lot of background in the teaching and stuff. I mean, there's lots of, I'm sure, cool things that you could incorporate to the Sinawali, and
Yeah,
it's a good drill. Yeah.
excellent. That's one of the things I've actually noticed during this pandemic is martial arts instructors have got very creative because they're so limited online now. Obviously, a lot of people don't have partners, and so they've had to get very creative with teaching to get the same stuff that they would teach in a class. Being able to do it online is a different.
Yes.
With the lack of partners and lack of equipment, a lot of the time too. It's great to see so much creativity within the martial arts.
Yes. Yeah. I think we have a similar viewpoint, and I don't view you as a competitor. I view you as someone who's doing the same thing I'm doing. So
Yeah,
your success is my success.
yeah,
And same with Kali Center or anyone else. So I hope they all do well and they don't mess up and, do something bad to where they put a black dot on their name. I don't want that. I hope everybody does well because it creates interest
it does. Yeah, definitely.
for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I view it that way. I don't, the competing part, I don't view it that way,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's great to see the martial arts community come together over the past year too. I know there's been a few now that have kind of built their name through controversy by,
Yeah.
but for the most part, most of them have been very supportive of each other and kind of, and I know a lot of people have even been cross training. on Zoom classes and things like that. So it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see when everything's opened again after pandemic across. I know Europe's locked down quite a bit still. But when that
Yeah.
all reopens, will the technology keep continuing, and will people keep doing this online? And but I hope so. But,
For sure. I hope so, because it's like an oil change for the car. You need exercise, period.
yeah.
You need to do it. And then why not do it with martial arts? Because it's pretty cool.
It is. There is a lot of cool. I know Ginger Trickster there. He's one of my favorites at the minute. I can't do anything on his channel,
Oh my
but it's
goodness.
fun trying. It's fun trying.
Yeah. Yeah. I know who you're talking about. That parkour stuff, I cannot, or the trick taekwondo, either one of those. I can't do any of. Yeah, that's a different world. Yeah.
It's my dad now. His best friend would have been a karate kid all his life, and my dad always says to me, "Can you hold your leg right up straight?" Because his friend could do it for years, and I'm like, "No, I can't do that." I said he could do it when he was 16, 17, same as me. But I said, when you're coming nearly 40, it's not that easy anymore.
I hear you. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But so it's different how different people will measure what is legit or what is not legit. Do you have a black belt? Can you do this? Can you break a brick? Everybody has different ideas of what is legit. But yeah.
That was fun. Well, it was great meeting you anyway, Wmpyr, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. And hopefully we can do this again.
Great.
Perfect. And thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And keep doing this. This is awesome work that you're doing.
Definitely. Thank you.
All right.
I guess